Today is February 6, 2020, which is exactly 1 year since I've been accepted to the Florida State University College of Medicine. I just feel compelled to make this video on interviewing 101 for medical school. I actually just got out of CLC today, so I feel very blessed to celebrate this day because 1 year ago I was accepted to Florida State University, which was one of my top choices for medical school. Like, today gave me that moment to stop and realize, like, wow, like, I know it's a lot and it's tough and it's a lot, but I made it, and here I am in my white coat with my stethoscope at Florida State University College of Medicine, and I'm so excited. So I'm here to bring you the best tips on how to have a successful interview, how to prepare for it, and ultimately how to increase your chances on getting into medical school. So let's dive right in. Number 1, be prepared. Know your application like the back of your hand. Read it again, read it again, read it again. You want to know your personal statement. You want to know your primaries. You want to know the secondaries that you submitted to the school. Every school has its own unique secondaries. So when you're interviewing for that specific school, make sure you read the secondary that you submitted, because you're going to want to know everything in your application. Know your scores, know your MCAT scores, know your individual scores, know your grades. So look at your transcripts, know your 15 experiences. So make sure you know every single one of them and are able to articulate yourself when they ask you questions about them. Most definitely know the blemishes in your application. Medical schools are going to bring up the blemishes most of the time. So if you have grade discrepancies, a lot of withdrawals, some withdrawals, a low MCAT, let's say you retook and you got a higher score, know the blemishes in your MCAT, know the trends in your transcripts, know all that stuff, know what mistakes you made, and be able to articulate how you improved moving forward. Second, research the school you are interviewing at. I cannot stress this enough. And this goes for any interview that you're doing. Even if you're not going to medical school, you're applying to dental school, research the school that you're applying to. If you're in business and you're trying to get a position with a company, research the company that you're applying to. You want to know their mission statement. You want to know their values. Why? Because you want to know how they align with your mission and your values. Know their statistics. What's their average MCAT score? What's their average GPA? You know, are they focused on research? Are they not focused on research? You want to know what their stats are for that specific school and where you stand in them. If you can't find something about the school that you really want to know, that's the opportunity to write that question down and use it when you're interviewing. During the interview process, there's gonna be several people that you meet, deans or interviewers or medical students, and those people will ask you, do you have any questions? You always have a question. So when you're doing your research about every individual school, write down the questions that you couldn't find on the internet. And this is your opportunity to ask those questions, to look interested, to look like you went beyond and did your research to find out about the school. And you want to know more about the school. And it makes you look very interested, very engaged, and you don't pass up the opportunity to ask any question. And so they like to see a very curious, dedicated future medical student. Third, know the outline of interview days. So some schools will post their interview schedule. You'll go to lunch at this time, arrive at this time, then you'll take a tour. Know that outline so you can mentally prepare yourself for it and you don't look lost on interview day. Sometimes they'll tell you what the interview style is like. So you want to know what the outline of the interview is so you can better prepare for it. So is it going to be conversational? Is it going to be speed dating? Is it going to be a panel? Is it going to be one-on-one? You want to prep for that. Is it going to be open file or closed file? You know, are these interviewers going to have a look at your application beforehand or are they not? Regardless, know your application. You want to know how many people you're going to be interviewed by. If you're going to be interviewed by 2 faculty, 1 faculty, a faculty and students. So know the structure of your interview day. Interview questions and responses. So now we're getting down to the nitty gritty. This is the number 1 question everybody asks me. What kind of questions are we gonna get? You know, what kind of questions did you get when you were interviewing? Here we go. This is my best advice. Research commonly asked questions in medical school. Go very broad. Now you can further research commonly asked questions for that specific medical school, and maybe you'll find something. These are the top things that they're gonna most definitely ask you, and from my experience, these were some of the questions that I was asked. So you wanna be able to articulate very well these questions, so make sure you're practicing. They wanna know about you and why you want to be a doctor. You need to be able to give your elevator speech about where you're from, who's your family, what has brought you to pursue medicine, what have you done that has prepared you to become a doctor, or what epiphanies did you have, what people in your life have impacted you in a certain way to give you this, I should go into medicine type thing. So they're gonna say, so tell me about yourself. And you go, and tell them everything about yourself very concisely in a few minutes, and this is something you have to practice. Another question they're commonly going to ask you is, why FSU? Or why, whatever other school you apply. The question I got was, why FSU? Why do I want to go here? What makes me different that makes me fit for that school? Or how is FSU so unique, and what makes you want to come here? That's the style question that you would get. And so you want to be able to, number one, apply the research that you did about the school and pick out, this is why I want to go here because they have this specific research program, they have this specific focus, this is how they prepare their students clinically, they have the regional campus rotations, and that makes it very different from other schools, and that's what I really liked about FSU. So that's your opportunity to apply all the research that you did about the school and talk about it. Other schools don't offer these type of opportunities, and this is the opportunity that I want. So this is why I want to go here. So make sure you research the school you're going to. Why should they pick you over anybody else? This is not the time to knock anybody else down. This is the time to focus on yourself and emphasize what sets you apart. That was my opportunity to say hey, I'm a Latina woman pursuing medicine, which is very rare. If you look at the statistics, not a lot of Hispanics go into medicine. So it was my opportunity to be hey, I'm a minority. I speak Spanish, which is a very big plus in the medical field. There's a strong need for Spanish-speaking physicians. So that was my opportunity to emphasize that. I emphasized my background. I'm from Miami, a very diverse city that has a lot of underserved areas. You work with a lot of diverse populations. There's a lot of need for Spanish-speaking physicians. And I was just coming at them. This is what makes me unique. This is how I'm diverse. This is how my upbringing has made me more passionate about pursuing medicine, realizing how underserved minorities are and how I love serving the community, and seeing how FSU focuses on those things made me passionate about going to FSU. So that's how I tied that in. Any medical school is going to ask you these questions. Why should we pick you? So this is the opportunity for you to sell yourself. For real. They may ask you about experience in the clinical field or a specific encounter you had with a patient. You were very challenged, whether emotionally or physically, and how, you were impacted by certain patients, or what stuck out to you the most. They might also ask, or is there anything not in your application that you would like us to know? Make sure you know your application. The application is very long. There's a lot of information in there, and some of it might be overlooked. So this is the opportunity to highlight things in your application that they might not have seen. That's your opportunity to emphasize things that are non-traditional, that aren't very common, that makes you different from the applicant pool. Because remember, again, every school has way more applicants than they can accept into their medical school. So you always want to emphasize what makes you different, why they should pick you. Everything at the end of the day ties to you becoming a doctor. So ethical questions. There is no right answer most of the time to these questions. Abortion, physician-assisted euthanasia, terminal illnesses, vaccination. Those are very controversial topics in medicine. They just want you to be able to articulate that you're aware of the issue, that you are familiar that there's going to be patients that you encounter that have opposing views, especially differing views from yourself. And they want to see that you'll be able to respect your patient's wishes. And every patient, at the end of the day, they have their autonomy, and you have to be able to respect that. They want to see that you're very aware of the issue that there is. They want to see that you can articulate both sides of the argument and the gray in between, and see how you navigate humanistically through a difficult situation that opposes your values in some cases. That you can understand people in very vulnerable situations, even if it opposes your values. You have to, at the end of the day, be able to provide treatment to your patient or refer them to somebody that can provide treatment. You know, that's the kind of gist that they're looking for. Healthcare policy questions. So you don't need to be an expert. They don't expect you to be a politician. They don't expect you to have the answer for universal healthcare in the United States of America, because obviously if there was an answer, we'd probably already have the problem solved. Just want to see that you're aware of what's going on, that you don't live under a rock. You know the current policies that are going on. If there's drastic changes that are going on during the time that you're interviewing, you want to be aware of those, read up on it, be able to have a brief conversation about it. And so be able to articulate yourself again on the pros and cons of these issues. Moving on. First impressions are key. You know, really listen to this because the details matter at the end of the day. So what do I recommend you wearing? I recommend wearing a business professional suit. It's the best bet. You want to go with black or blue. Gray is cool too. So for a neutral top or you want a color pop, I always go with yellow because I'm very school spirited. So shoes for girls, you can wear flats or heels. You want to have a pen, and I recommend a Padfolio. This is what the inside looks like. You could put stuff here. They're gonna be handing you folders and papers and stuff, so you wanna have somewhere to put it. This is like less than $10 at Walmart. Highly recommend. Don't forget a pen. Easy on the makeup. Don't go crazy. Very neutral, kind of like this is good. Easy on the piercings. Studs are good. I would recommend something like, you know, very simple. I would remove facial piercings. I took out my nose ring when I was interviewing. That's just my recommendation. Cover up tattoos if they're visible. Next, eye contact. Every person that you encounter, you want to look them in the eye. Smile, eye contact, firm handshake. If you don't know how to do a firm handshake, practice it. You want to be very enthusiastic, very focused, very attentive. Always ask questions and introduce yourself to everybody, down to the medical student, to the person in the lobby, to the admission staff, to the interviewer. You want to eye contact, shake, thank you, you know, for inviting me at this opportunity. Thank you for taking the time, blah, blah, blah. And I know this, for some people, this is like common sense, but seriously, some people need to hear this stuff. One of my advisors at USF recommended for me to bring thank you cards at the dollar store, kind of like this, with an envelope. She was like, before you call anybody, you're going to handwrite, kind of like this. You could do just half a page, thanking whoever you encountered for their time. Basically, you want to thank them for considering you and that you were very grateful for the experience of interviewing at their medical school. During your interview, write down their name and the address to their office. And as soon as you walk out of the interview, you write the letters to your interviewers, to the deans or whatever, whoever you encountered and introduce yourself to. Write them a card, put it in the mail so that they can receive it ASAP before the admissions committee meets. I thought this was a really good tip. I never thought about it until she told me. I think it makes a very good impression, and so I highly recommend it. I don't know how much weight it has, to be honest, but I'm here, so I would do it. Practice makes perfect. And try on your outfit before you actually interview. We don't need pants ripping, we don't need bagginess, just don't look crazy. Just try on your outfit before, make sure everything's in the right places, nothing's coming out, nothing's too tight, nothing's too big. Make sure you write out and practice your elevator speech out loud. Practice in front of your parents, practice in front of your friends, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever. Make sure you practice. If you don't have anybody to practice with, make a video of yourself and watch yourself. Make a list of questions that you will be potentially asked. So I kept a running list and I practiced saying it out loud when I was practicing by myself. I would record myself and I would rewatch my videos and write down things, critique yourself. You can also hand this random list of questions to a friend and say, pick a question and ask me, and then time yourself and make sure you're not going overboard when answering these questions. It also helps to write out or type out the response to these questions so you have a general idea of what you want to say. You probably won't get asked all these questions. Some of them you will, some of you won't. But the more you practice, the more prepared you're going to be. Mock interviews. These are super helpful. I cannot stress this enough. Universities offer pre-medical advising, and in this pre-medical advising office, a lot of them had advisors that actually offer their time to sit there and schedule a mock interview with you. You come in literally just like it's your interview for medical school, and they will format it as similar as they can to medical school, and they'll provide critiques, and this is your opportunity to do a almost for real practice run through before the real thing. And I highly recommend doing this. I had the opportunity to do that at USF when I was in my master's, and I got really good feedback that I otherwise wouldn't have gotten. And if you don't have the opportunity to do that with a professional, just simply doing it with another pre-med friend. Some people have their mentors do a mock interview with them, so make sure you do a mock interview if you can. Because I'm a super YouTube fanatic. Before I interviewed, I looked up interview questions and I saw how professors would answer them and advice that they would give. They would give examples of good responses and examples of bad responses. And so YouTube videos were super helpful because you got different perspectives and you were able to practice in that sort of way. Make connections. I've had several people in my life tell me this, and I really believe it, that it's not always what you know, but sometimes it comes down to it's who you know. And unfortunately or fortunately, in the professional world, a lot of this comes down to it. If you have connections with the university you're applying to, hold on to those and use those. In my interview, I was like, I worked here. I love the people here. I love being around everybody. The faculty is super helpful. I loved FSU, and I was very vocal about it and very vocal about all my ties that I had to FSU and my research, etc. So if you have connections to the school, make sure you emphasize those, because they like to see hey, our people have worked with you and they had a pleasant experience. Highlight those ties that you have to the university. If you know students that go to the medical school that you go to, reach out to them, because most of the time they'll give you advice and tell you about their experience. But when I was applying to FSU, I reached out to the mentors that I had in medical school or advisors that I had in the medical school, and I asked them for advice on how I could prepare best for my interview. You pull on those connections that you have, and if you don't have any connections, there's your opportunity to build them. So don't let the opportunity to make a relationship or foster a relationship pass you by. When you're interviewing and you send those thank you cards, follow up. Even if you're accepted, if you're waitlisted, whatever the case may be, follow up with them, because at the end of the day, they played a role in getting you to where you're at, and you never know how helpful that relationship is going to be to you in the future. At the end of the day, let's say you have to reapply. They're going to be the ones to tell you how you can improve your application. And so make sure you hold on to those connections. So if you are waitlisted or you're worried about being waitlisted, whatever the case may be, make sure you follow up with the university and ask them if there's any way that you can get feedback on your application or on your interview to see where you can improve, what you can strengthen the next time around. Woo, this is a lot of information. Okay, words of advice, I guess you could say. So be confident, but be humble. I feel like myself, I tend to be a very confident person, and to some that comes off arrogant, but that's never my intention. You want to be very humble, because at the end of the day, going into medicine is a very humbling journey, and this is not for everybody. But even getting offered an opportunity to interview is a huge deal. So give yourself credit for that. But don't walk in there I got this. You don't even got to interview me because I am perfect. No, you need to be humble, own up to the mistakes that you have, the blemishes that you have in your application, and yeah, just be humble, please. Be grateful for the interview and thank everybody for taking the time to consider your application. These schools have thousands of applications, and some of them can only interview a few hundred students. So if you got an interview, don't take it for granted. You need to prepare for this and take it seriously. Don't totally steal the show. Interview day is done in a group setting. So there's going to be other people around you trying to interview, trying to get the same spot. This is not the time to be cutthroat. Give other people the opportunity to ask questions. Make sure you ask your questions. You're going into healthcare. And in healthcare, it's all about teamwork. So this is your opportunity to show them, like, you know when to step up and you know when to step back. You know when to ask your question and you know when to step back and let Stacy ask her question, right? Just take a deep breath and relax and pray when you go in, pray when you leave. Update the school if you need to with your grades or transcripts or scores if you retook MCAT. And at the end of the day, if they weren't interested in you, they wouldn't have invited you for an interview. So they obviously want to get to know you more. They liked what they saw in your application and they want to hear more about it in the flesh. Don't psych yourself out. You're there because they want to learn more about you. So use that to your advantage. Never speak anything negative into the universe. Even if you feel it, like, just swallow it and let it go down into the deep depths of your gut, because don't speak any negativity into the universe regardless. Just pray about it and keep it moving. My last thing I want to leave with you is seek God's will in all that you do and he will direct your path. And this is Proverbs 3:6. I hope that this was very helpful to every single one of you. Watch it again if you need to. If you have any questions or comments, please comment below. I'm pretty good about answering back. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your endless support. Man, stay strong because it's tough out here, but you make it. So again, February 6th, celebrating 1 year since my acceptance. And I really hope that this helps some of you out there, and God bless every single one of you.